So, well, yeah, I'd love to get your take then. Maybe, well, I could just walk through and kind of explain, assuming you've never heard of it before, or as far as essence existence with how Thomas Aquinas mapped it out. I could just pretend that you've never heard of this, or is there a starting point where maybe you want to already introduce some idea, however you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, you can introduce it. I mean, what are we
Yeah.
describing? I wonder. Are we just describing reality? I mean, I don't really see it as, well, obviously, I don't know what it is, but I don't really see it as having much to do with God. But if we're
Okay.
saying that, I wonder what we're describing here. Are we just describing generally reality? So it's like a metaphysics, or what are
Yes.
we doing?
Yeah. Yes. 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 A metaphysics. Yep.
Okay. And so, yeah, I suppose we're describing reality. So go ahead, introduce me to this account of reality.
Alrighty. So there'll be a couple of angles or stabs at it, and maybe one of them will click. Maybe yeah, I'll just have to try different ways because I admit, it's sometimes like I said, it's getting in the frame of mind. But I guess one way I would say is, uh, what is the difference between the word "what" and the word "that"? And specifically, uh, we know that there's a difference between what something is and that it is. So that is to say, if I may ask, what is like an object sitting in front of you right now? What's something you can see right now?
Well, my phone.
Oh, well, fair enough. Okay, so the phone has a what it is. So the phone, we can come up with a definition of it. It has the screen, it's connected, it has these different parts. That's what it is. That is the essence of it. And the existence is that it is that you notice that the phone is there, that your phone is there, which is just simply to say, it's existing, it's there versus not there.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't
yeah,
agree with you. Yeah, I
well,
would disagree.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think that's I don't think there is such a distinction.
Okay, so all right, so is there a distinction? Well, so let's I guess explore that. So okay, because I'd say there's an essence and an existence. Now, how do we demonstrate that? So let's say if I said a unicorn, do you know what I'm talking about when I convey that concept?
Yeah, like a horse with a horn.
Yeah, exactly, like a horned horse creature, a horse with a horn.
Yeah.
But we agree that a unicorn doesn't have existence.
Well, wait. You said that there is this thing that we know called a unicorn. So that is what it is, right? So it does have a thatness. We're talking about this concept. That is what it is. And I mean, what a thing is, that a thing is what it is what I'm saying. It's like we agree there's a unicorn. What do we mean by this term? We're referring to some vague idea of a horse with a horn, maybe like a picture of it, or we're positing some model of it. And maybe we even think there's a spatial unicorn somewhere in the universe. I don't know. But yeah, I think it exists. Like we picked something out and we're discussing it. Unicorns, whether it's a spatial object or not, I don't mind. But we've picked
Yeah.
something else, and that is what has been picked out, and it is what it is.
Well, interesting. I guess I have to think about that a little bit. But my first hunch, I suppose, as far as the language to bridge between something that quote unquote exists in my mind as a concept, just like a triangle, right? I mean, I could say, yeah, a triangle. The essence of a triangle is a three-sided figure, and but does a triangle exist? Um, and I mean, can we find a triangle in reality or a circle? Well, not necessarily. I mean, we can find approximations. So I guess what I'm trying to distinguish between, throw it back to you, is that um, compared to like a dog, I say the word dog and the concept hits your mind. You see the dog as a concept, but it also exists. If there's a dog in front of you, or the phone, you said the phone is not only a concept in your mind, but it is in actuality right there with you. Whereas the unicorn, the concept, there's the essence of it, but it doesn't. There's no actuality of the unicorn in actual existence. In the reality, like where's the unicorn? Can I go find the unicorn?
Well, hold
Is it?
on.
Yeah.
I mean, you just keep you, you said a couple of times now before the unicorn and the phone that they're not in reality.
The
But at the
phone is
beginning
in
of the
reality. Sorry,
conversation,
the phone is in reality,
yeah,
but the
okay, but the
unicorn is not.
unicorn is not. The unicorn is not in reality, or the idea of the phone is not. Rather, the actual phone is. But at the beginning of the conversation, we said, we're describing reality as consisting of essence and existence. And so I'm wondering how now we're getting away from that agreement that we're discussing reality and positing things outside of reality. So, I mean, the unicorn is what it is, whether it's a concept or a spatial object. And the phone is what it is, whether it is a concept of a phone or a phone, which would be two different things. But each one is what it is. We just got to make these distinctions, but it's all in reality, right? It's all there to talk about. So I'm wondering why now we have certain things being placed outside of reality if the whole discussion was to discuss reality.
Yeah, well, I guess we have to get into further defining. I mean, it's a fair pushback. Maybe we're talking about potency versus actuality here in this. So maybe, okay, is both the potency of something, is that considered a subset of reality as well as the act? I mean, so for example, if I were to, if a water, it could become hot, but currently the water is cold, and I'm staring at a cold cup of water, I say that the water contains the potency of hot, but it doesn't become actual in existence, until I heat it up, until I introduce it somehow. So in this sense, I'm saying, like, yes, the potency of the unicorn exists, like, but it doesn't become actual until we actualize it and instantiate it into. I mean, I guess, in some sense, there's an implication of physical reality, right? That maybe that's what I'm kind of saying. But trying to distinguish between. Go
You
ahead.
agree the unicorn. You agree that the unicorn, insofar as that means anything, it's in reality. So basically, we have reality as this: what is there to speak about, or what is present, or what is meaningful. That we have that single, all-encompassing entity called reality that we're discussing. And now it sounds like you have a distinction between spatial objects and mental objects or something, which is fine. But I just want to make sure, like we're in agreement now. We're still talking about reality, basically. What is there to talk about? This like single, all-encompassing subject. And this stuff about potency, I think, is going to cause some problems because I'm going to say no. It doesn't make sense to say a cold cup of water can be a hot cup of water. A cold cup of water is a cold cup of water, right? That's its identity. To say that it could be a hot cup of water would be to say that a cold cup of water could be a hot cup of water. But a cold cup of water is a cold cup, not a hot cup. So basically, I think you're saying that it would be what it is not, which I think just doesn't make much sense.
Well, in this case, the cold would be an accident of the cup, because the temperature of something is subject to change. It's a changeable property. It's not an essential feature of the cup of the water itself. But okay, to your point,
Is that true though? Like if I can push back on that, I mean, you're saying here's a cold cup of water, and then you're saying that it is cold is an accident. But no, it's actually what it is, because what was being spoken of was a cold cup of water. Therefore, cold cannot be an accident of a cold cup of water. Cold would be inherent to it because it's like by definition that's what it is. If it was not cold, it would not be a cold cup of water. So it cannot be an accident.
Right, but I guess, yeah. I mean, I do want to get. I will address your point here, but I do want to get to the other thing about realness. Oh, hold on. Sorry, my son is. What? Wait a second, son.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna be. I'll have him walk around out here in a minute.
No worries.
Okay, so the cold cup of water. I get what you're saying. If I'm making a referent and I'm including in the bundle of things, I'm saying cold cup water. I understand that, in that item for consideration, I'm introducing cold as like an essential feature of the thing, in some kind of composite way. So I get that. I suppose, and I don't mean to, because I don't want to go down this rabbit trail too much, because I want to go back to the reality thing. But I suppose implicit here is, if we talk about things, what has the nature of something, and water, has a nature. Cold doesn't necessarily have a nature. The cold is like a property that can get expressed, but it's not. It's not directed towards anything. It's more of a feature of something else rather than a thing. Like cold is a feature that necessarily must is contingent upon something else, just like red. Like red can only exist on another thing, the color red. You can't experience redness absent of another thing. So in that sense, the coldness again is accidental in an Aristotelian sense. It's not something that exists just on its own. Coldness.
Well, the water doesn't exist on its own either, right? I mean, water is a feature of coldness then, or temperature is a feature of, I mean, water is a feature of temperature, I suppose. If we wanted to take all the things that have temperature, water would just be one of them and could just be accidental. It's like how we're casting our net and what perspective we're taking. This seems all very relative and just given to a certain perspective. I wouldn't want to say that one thing is more or less real than another, or more or less accidental than another, absent some particular interested perspective.
Well, I guess this is like the substance accidents distinction, and like the direction from cause to effect. There is a one, there's an ordering of things from cause to effect. It's not that the effect produces the cause, right? It's so in this sense, it's not that temperature causes water. The water can cause a temperature in some respects, right? So I don't think it's necessarily a arbitrary symmetry of relations between all things. I think that there's there's like a squirrel. The essence of there's a squirrel, and then the tail of a squirrel is an accident of the squirrel. I could chop the tail off, and it's still a squirrel, right? So in the same sense, I can remove coldness from water. It's still water. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't destroy the concept of water if I change the cold feature of it.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how you're defining the term. It's just rendering terms vague. Like if you define a squirrel as a small animal with a tail, and then you cut the tail off, obviously it's not a squirrel anymore, because by definition, it has to have a tail to meet the definition of squirrel. But I also think that I'm going to disagree with you on causation. I don't agree with, again, I'm not the guy putting forward the Thomist or Aristotelian case here, but I also think that we can't just assume causation here. I don't think things cause each other. I think things are in a certain relationship to one another, but obviously each thing is what it is and is not reliant on something else to be what it is.
So, well, yeah, we'll have to unpack that too, I guess. But going back to the squirrel, and like you said, you're saying if I defined a squirrel as an animal with a tail and I cut the tail off, I guess it's no longer a squirrel by that definition. I think here we'll run into ultimately the symbolic nature of language itself, where sure, like for the purpose of communicating, we're using these symbols and words, but underneath the symbols, they're transporting an actual like thing, the intuitive phantasm or something, a thing, a substance that the intellect grasps. So sure, like we can deconstruct the language, but at some point there's a good faith where like if I literally have a squirrel, we both have the same image that pops up, tail and all its features. If I chop the tail off and we're looking at it together, I assume we wouldn't say, oh, it's no longer a squirrel, or would you? Or you would say, no, now that we've cut the tail off, this is now a completely different substance. It's of entirely different nature. It no longer possesses the nature of squirrelness. Now it's might as well call it a golf ball or something, right? Like, I assume you would still agree with me that if we chop the tail off together, we're still looking at a squirrel.
Well,
Like
I just think the term is vague. It's like how broad or how narrow is the term? I mean, if ultimately what we were doing was looking at an animal and saying, whatever organism we're looking at, and that's going to persist over a certain period of time. Sure, you cut the tail off, the tail is going to die or whatever. It's not going to persist very long, if we even have an agreement on what persistence is. But yeah, I mean, you're thinking like the mind or the mentality of the squirrel or what directs it or causes it to run around, then obviously I'm going to side with the body rather than the tail because it's got the brain and the mind and it's going to be looking around and running around. And that's really the meaning we were capturing. But I think this is just a vagary of language. I don't think this has very much to do with act and potency and like substance and accidents. Sure. I think that what we're talking about now is just whether the language was vague or specific and what we were really trying to grasp when we used words. But yeah, no, I'm rejecting all this stuff about act potency and substance accident. It's all just relative stuff.
Well, Well, before we get back to that, because I know that is our main branch, is back to the act potency stuff. But I just want to establish this so I know that, since we are having a conversation, it means we both agree that there's some intelligibility or shared reality where we can actually communicate, and that we're not just speaking nonsense vibrations back and forth to each other, but that, we're referring to actual things, and then we're trying to make sense of it together. So with the squirrel thing, I guess the way I would look at that is, again, we're looking at this creature, and it's a squirrel, and we both understand it. Even if we didn't have the word for it, we could call it a gobbledygook, we could call it a blue blah, or whatever. We're both sitting there in the same space, and we recognize it's a distinct thing that's different than the other things. And yeah, we decide to use the symbol of squirrel, but again, we could call it whatever. We just recognize that it is a thing that has its own unique, essence that's different than the other things that are in the room. And sure, if we cut the tail off, we might just say that it's now a defective form of a squirrel. Like it's like if you have a dog and cut a leg off a three-legged dog, it's still a dog, but it doesn't really fit the perfect form of a dog, or what it should be. But I guess my question is,
But that perfect form is just our definition or expectation for it. It's perspective. Like, what is the perfect form of a squirrel? That's just our agreed definition of it, or what the mentality wants.
Okay.
Whoops, I think you're breaking up there, Drager.
Is that thing and not another thing, right? Oh, did I lose you? Did I lose you?
Yeah, okay, now I can hear you. Sorry, you broke up a bit there.
Yeah, I guess my question is, without getting caught up in like the language stuff, is just simply, if we're both looking at that thing, again, I don't want to call it a squirrel, I don't want to call whatever. If there's that thing in front of us, can we both acknowledge that, hey, that thing is that thing, and it's not another thing? Like, the A equals A, right? And it's not negative A. It's not the opposite of itself, right? Like, we both agree
everything
that
is what it is. Everything is what it is. Yep.
And it is what it isn't, right? It's the.
Well, it depends. Reality is what it is, and you can't add that second line of is not what it is not, because there is nothing other than reality for it to not be. So it wouldn't make sense to add another sentence there. But yeah, for particular things like the squirrel or the phone is the phone and not the orange or the apple. And by saying that, we admit that there is an orange and there is an apple. Otherwise, it wouldn't be meaningful. But yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Because I think for conversation that we possibly do have to take, we can't go into a fully radically skeptic extreme, because then it becomes solipsistic, and then when you use words, I can't understand what they mean, and when I use words, you can't understand what they mean. So on some level, we have to kind of take the leap here that some communication is possible, and that when I say squirrel, you kind of understand what I mean, and that the squirrel is different than a dog.
Understanding what you mean. I mean, like if we're in a room and we point at an object, to the extent that means anything to me, the meaning is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to say that anything is not. Everything is. So I'm the least skeptical. I'm saying that everything exists.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess get back to the whole.
Oh, and just cut again.
I'm sorry, cutting.
Audio cut again.
Thanks for letting me know. Yeah. Sorry. So back to the whole reality thing, and just to get listeners up to speed here. So where we branched off, then we're going to go back to this main branch of the conversation. Is that we were, I was trying to assert that, the essence and existence, that like a unicorn has an essence. It's in your mind, but it doesn't exist because it's not, in the extramental space. Right? So I call that reality. But then, Tweetafon's point is, well, it does exist because, your mind is part of the reality. So if you have a image in your head of a unicorn, that unicorn exists in that category. So then let me just offer this distinction that I think, Thomas Aquinas would make the distinction of the difference between intentional existence and real existence. So sure, something like an idea exists in the sense that it's like an object of thought. But then we talk about the act of existing outside the mind as being a different thing. So in this sense, what I mean, with the name of the space, when we talk about existence, I'm specifically referring to the extramental kind of actuality of something, as opposed to just an idea in my head, if that's fair.
I don't really think it's fair, because I think you're trying to say that there's a distinction in how they exist, like that, or that they exist. I mean, and also that it's in a mind. I mean, I don't know if these ideas are in a mind, or if a mind just grasps them, or how to model that, or how you would model that. But they all 100% exist as what they are. So remember, you said that there's a that they exist and what they exist as. They both satisfy that completely. I mean, the idea of a unicorn, that it exists, yeah, we can talk about it. It's and then what is it? Well, it is what it is. It is I guess some modeling or vision or picture or image of a horse with a horn, and it satisfies both. I mean, it is what it is. So it fully 100% exists to the same extent that a spatial thing exists. I don't see this mental and extra mental. I mean, you could say that some things are spatial, some things are not spatial. They don't have mass. But now we're just describing things. We're not saying that one exists and one doesn't.
Can an object exist outside of thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it would be what it is, right? Tomorrow, I mean, what's tomorrow? Is the content of tomorrow in my thought? No, I mean, I don't know what happens tomorrow, but it is what it is.
So what would so I guess we use similar language. And what language would you use to make the distinction between, let's say I had the idea Sherlock Holmes. Okay, I have this character Sherlock Holmes, and so in that sense he exists as an idea. We understand what Sherlock Holmes is, but Sherlock Holmes doesn't exist outside of the thought. Like I can't find him. Where's Sherlock Holmes? He's not. There's no one walking around who's Sherlock Holmes. Not he doesn't exist well, I'd say in reality, or you say, okay, if that's not specific enough, he doesn't exist in the extra mental reality. Like where's Sherlock Holmes, right?
Well, he's not material, right? You'd have a material body. And I think there's also a vagueness being trapped here, where you think it's one entity, like the idea of a unicorn and a particular unicorn, or an idea of a character named Sherlock Holmes in a fictional story, like a book you pick up, is somehow the person who would be a material body walking around. I mean, these are two distinguishable entities. But yeah, I would just say, like, the one entity you're identifying is not material, it's some other stuff. However we want to cash that out. Maybe materialists have a great way of explaining ideas as material, I don't know. But then you would have a separate distinguishable entity that's a material body going around, and they have a certain relationship to each other, maybe. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, well that's okay. That's interesting. So let's say we take we say Donald Trump. Does Donald Trump exist? So I guess if I'm trying to reflect back here, when I say Donald Trump, two things happen. Like if I say Donald Trump right now, an image of Donald Trump could pop up, or even if there's no image, your intellect understands what Donald Trump is. What is Donald Trump? Like you understand. But then you're saying, now let's say Donald Trump, is here. We in our vicinity, in our space. You're saying that Donald Trump is a separate Donald Trump than the Donald Trump that I just said, that I evoked with my words. Like you're saying those are just two different things. It's not one thing with a different,
Really, you're using these words to pick something out, and what are you picking out by them? Like if I said, I'm talking about Donald Trump, am I talking about an individual? I guess he's in the White House right now. I don't know where he is. And he's, this material entity with a mind talking to people. Maybe I'm talking to him. Okay, then that's what I'm picking out. And I could also be picking out a character in all these memes. I could say, look, it's Donald Trump riding a tiger. Well, obviously, I don't think there's a material Donald Trump in the White House riding a tiger, but there's a certain vagueness. And so if we really want to communicate clearly about Donald Trump, the context will probably tip us off. Like if, I don't know, if the vice president called me up and said, I'm here with Donald Trump, I'm going to assume it's like the material fellow who's in the White House and not an AI or a computer game or memes or something. But yeah, I think there's certain vagueness in language that can cause some confusion about that. And yeah, there is an expectation that we would have to clear up that confusion. And the only way that, well, I don't want to prejudge your position, but I think a lot of these attempts at theology and metaphysics are only going to survive by vagueness.
Uh, yeah, I think the problem of vagueness is I mean, I think that that's just a fundamental epistemological issue just for any cognition. As finite beings, in some sense, we're trying to grasp the completion of things through a finite reception of it. So I think that's always going to be the issue of ambiguity for sure. There's no way I
Well,
can formulate.
would you agree that theology does not really try to grasp all things? It tries to grasp a limited thing, whereas metaphysics, this discussion of reality writ large, goes beyond theology and is actually this topic where we try to grasp all things. It is actually genuine philosophy. It goes beyond religion or theology.
Well, yeah, theology, the bridge with philosophy and theology is theology, of course, makes a claim of some sort of revelation or received. If we're within the system, it typically involves some claim of something being transferred from without us, from not from within me, but something external being revealed, and of course, theo being God, so related to a concept of a God, and what do we even mean when we say God. Um, so yeah, for
But
sure.
whatever we say of God, would you agree that whatever we have to say of God, it is of reality or of what is? Obviously, we're not going to talk about something beyond what is.
Well, the is itself, right? There's what is, and then there's the is itself, the act to be, right? The subsistent act to be, the act of
Well,
existence.
I don't see this act of existence. I'm just saying whether something is acting to exist or it's not existing, whatever's there to speak of. This sort of any sort of meaning. Would you agree that whatever we have to say of God, whatever meaning is on offer there, it's within meaning. It's within what is there to speak of.
Whatever meaning, I'm trying to understand that. Whatever meaning we
Yeah, I mean,
have.
when we're talking, we're communicating meaning to each other, right? And so if you wanted to tell me, my name's Adam, or you can call me Tweety, I don't mind, but Adam, I'm going to tell you about God today. I'm like, all right, that sounds really meaningful. And you'll communicate, whatever you're going to communicate to me is going to present me with some meaning, some sort of substance, some presence. And it's not going to present me with what is not meaningful or what is not present or what is not like a non-being. It's only going to it's going to be affirmative, just like everything is affirmative because it all is what it is. And so my thinking is, we started by admitting, it's metaphysics, it's about the whole of what is, it's about reality writ large. And so it sounds like you're probably going to agree with me, but God is a subset of that. He's a limited entity within that bigger topic.
See, yeah, this is where I was tracking with you, and here's where I'd say, well, no, it's not. But I guess if we're not. Well, I guess if you let me, maybe I have to walk through it. Even though, yeah, I'd have to think about how, like you said, where we already disagreed from the bat is the separation between what and that. What something is and that it is. You said no, that's not a real distinction. Um, well, let me ask you.
Would you say that I am God? Am I divine?
No, well, no. But let me. Can I ask you this? Can I ask you this with? So let's say your phone. So you have your phone. We agree what it is. There's a definition. There's a thing. Could you imagine? Could your phone have not existed? Like, could it just like not be there, not existing? Right? Or is it necessary?
No.
Does your phone necessarily just have to exist?
Yeah, everything is necessary because everything is what it is. There's no way for it to not be what it is. It's like saying the phone is not the phone. Yeah, to say that my phone doesn't exist is in the sense of it is not what it is.
Oh, it does exist. No, your phone
is not the phone.
No, your phone exists. I agree, your phone exists. But could it have not exist? Like, could it not exist, or it's just impossible?
Like, hash that out. Like, what is the phone? What is the term the phone referencing? It's referencing the phone, right? And it is what it is. And so if we're saying, could the phone not exist? What we're saying is, here is this entity that is a phone and has all these, like however we want to describe the phone or whatever its inner being is. Could it be what it is not? And the answer is no. It could only be what it is because we've defined it. We said, look, here is the phone. Could it be other than a phone? No, it can only be the phone because that's what it is. It is what it is. That's identity. The mistake is to try to say that things can be what they are not.
I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying because it's going back to your definition of since I said the word phone, I'm evoking the concept of phone, so we can't say that concept doesn't exist because then the sentence becomes incoherent. We can't even. To your point, that's a contradiction. So again, I guess going back to I want to use a terminology that you would find agreeable then. So if existence for you involves both the conceptual and the extramental, when I'm saying exists, like in this case, the phone, would you agree that that thing that you're holding, it's not just an idea in your head, right? It's actually, well, I won't say in reality, but you'll disagree with maybe that me using that phrasing. But it is what an extramental reality. I mean, how? Just help me out here. What language can I use to convey the concept I'm trying to get across here?
I don't think I'm being unfair if I say we can't say things are outside of reality when we're saying like the subject is reality and reality consists of all meaning or whatever is there to discuss. Like I don't think it's unfair to say don't put things outside of reality because it doesn't make sense. It's just a direct contradiction. It's like let me talk about this thing that is not within the category of things I can talk about. But but now like do you want to call a phone extramental? That's fine, but then that's just your perspective, right? Because you're talking from again, I'm not requiring any particular model of the world. I'm sure a materialist can come in here and say everything's material and try and cash that out. But I'm assuming that in your model of extramental and mental, you're on the mental side and you're saying that there's a phone outside of your mentalness, so it's material. So yeah, you can call it extramental, but really what I think you're saying is it's material. Because what does extramental mean other than not mental? Just put it in the affirmative.
Sure,
it is material.
Well, what I'm we can do that, but the purpose of just negating the extra, calling it extramental, is so that I'm not committing to a specific, fundamentally on matter, energy, chemicals. We can't. I can call it material. That's fine. I'm just saying we don't even have to specify the nature of it. I'm just saying it's an other, right? It's like subject and object distinction. I don't have to say that the object is composed of matter. I'm just simply saying there's things that are mental and then non-mental, and then we can discuss what's the substance of the non-mental. Sure, let's just call it material. That's fine for our conversation. But again, my point is though, do you agree that the phone? Okay, we'll call it material, right? It exists materially. It's not just like a mental thing, right? It exists even if you stop to look at it.
Yeah, it's a material. It's a spatial. It's a thing I'm touching and holding. Yeah, it exists as what it is. Yes, and if you want to say, can I draw a distinction between someone communicating in words what a phone is, and then the phone that I'm holding in my hand? Sure, I can make that distinction. Yeah, each thing exists as it is. And the phone in my hand exists as it is. Yeah.
So now I guess could we differentiate? And sorry, can you hear me? Because I'm walking around. I know my internet cuts out.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, so let's say we have two items. One is phone, just in the idea. Well, let's say let's do something easier because phone, it's like, what is it? It's a screen. It's buttons. I mean, it's kind of, phones are kind of a funny thing. Let's just say a dog, because a dog. Okay, whatever. We see this thing. It has ears, four legs, whatever. There's a dog that can exist in idea, and then a dog that exists materially. Because hey, here's your dog. I don't know if you have a dog, but there's the dog materially. It is in the outside of the mental. It's not just an idea, but the dog exists. So then the question is those two things, right? The dog, which is purely again like four-legged animal with ears, like again whatever definition we agree on. Let's just assume we've already agreed on that definition of a form of a dog, what the dog is. There's a difference between that dog and then the dog that is actually in material reality. But when I use the word dog, it applies, to both states, and so the essence doesn't contain the existence, or doesn't contain the material existence. Let's say if I were to use the qualifier, so the definition of dog doesn't include material existence within it because a dog, that's not an essential property of a dog, right? I say a dog, it doesn't have to have material existence.
That's just your choice. I mean, do you want to be specific and refer only to paintings of dogs or only to conversations about dogs? Or do you want to be broader and include material dogs? Or maybe specific to just material dogs and exclude books about dogs? I mean, this is all just indicating what you're trying to reference. I mean, you can reference material dogs. You can just say, look, I'm referring to the kingdom of dogs, and that's all that is material dog in the universe, and it refers to all material dogs. And yeah, that's a reference to material dogs, all of them.
Right, but the word, I guess, if we had a qualifier of material dog versus immaterial dog, then sure, now we're creating a distinction, but that material versus immaterial distinction can be made onto any object. It's not unique to dog. Like dog doesn't contain that material versus immaterial distinction. The dog, like, which again, as far as the definition that makes a dog and not a chair, material existence is not an essential feature of that definition. Like the reason a dog is not a chair doesn't have anything to do with material existence. It's within the essence of dogness and chairness. Like it's a material existence is not a feature that needs to distinguish one essence from another essence. The essence of a dog and essence of a chair, we don't need material existence to be a differentiator because in fact it's not central to their essence.
Well, you need it to be the material difference. I mean, you need it to be the difference between an immaterial dog and a material dog, right?
Oh well, sure, but right, but I'm
Yeah.
But do you agree that to know the difference between a dog and chair, the essence of what a dog is and what a chair is, the idea of whether it materially exists is irrelevant to establishing the boundaries of the essence of chair and essence.
Well, yeah, if we're trying to give these immaterial descriptions of things, then whether it's material would be irrelevant. But if we're giving like material conditions for a dog and material conditions for a chair, the materiality would be in the definition. I guess I'm just really not seeing where this is going. It's almost like a semantic, like where can we draw lines? I agree, we can draw lines in many places, and we can use, if we think the world is mental and material, if that's our model, then we can draw lines between mental and material, or we can draw lines in many places. But I'm not really seeing how this will prove the point of things existing and not existing, or essence and existence as the correct description of reality, or what is, like everything breaks down into essence and existence, or what sort of, I just don't see where it's going. Honestly, it just seems like we're drawing lines, and I'm happy to draw lines, but I just don't see any metaphysical significance.
Yeah, well, yeah. To be sure, I'm not trying to be semantic or pedantic about it. I do think this has real metaphysical implications, but I know it's like painstakingly, could feel in the thick of it. Like, what's the point? But I get.
Oh, you dropped out again.
Did
anyone else? Okay, there we go. You're back now.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. What was the last thing I said that you heard?
I think you were just about to start a new sentence. You said we were in the weeds, and I think then you were going to bring us to a new point or something.
Got it. Yeah, in the weeds. I get it. Yeah. I'm not trying to just take us on a random journey. I think there is metaphysical significance. So I guess to maybe phrase it a different way, our basic perception. Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry. Give me 30 seconds real quick. I got to do a dad thing real quick. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
All right, Adam, you there? Apologies.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, right on. So, okay, if we start with the observation that we notice differentiation, that our current experience, it's not a homogeneous blur, but we see there's different things, and some things are similar, others are different, and that it's not everything is the same thing, but things are different things. And so then the question is, well, how do we recognize? How do I know that one thing is different than another thing? So to us, I don't stay abstract. Again, let's say like a dog in a chair. That I know that's not. I know my son's gonna be falling. I know that a dog is not a chair based on has a different essence. So what's an essence, right? It's we could say, it's kind of like a definition. It's kind of like the things that are essential to giving its identity. And so, okay, we could debate, but intuitively understand that a chair is different than a dog. We can say why. Well, a chair has like a seat and then the things, but a dog has, whatever, it has a mouth. So sorry. Lastly, I'm sorry. So since we agree that yes, I know that a dog is not a chair, my point is the way we know that a dog is not a chair are based on the different essences, but those essences don't contain the feature of material existence. It's completely irrelevant, whether the dog materially exists or the chair materially exists. That is not a point of distinction. Therefore, material existence is not contained within the essence of the thing.
Well, I 2 points, because there's also the point that you did at the end there, but the essence is not doing anything here other than saying that a thing is what it is. It's like, what's a dog?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Like, what is that dog? Well, that dog is a bundle of atoms in a certain arrangement with a certain type of mind and certain nature and blah, blah, blah. And we say, okay, well, that's the essence. Now, there's no way of removing the materiality from the essence of that dog, because what that dog is material. Like, that's part of its definition. And so to your second point, no, I'm not removing materiality or its presence from its essence, because it is what it is, namely a material dog. I don't mind that you can have broader categories, or that you can, we can talk and our words material, I guess they're vibrations or something to some material people, but I don't mind if we cash things out as material or immaterial, but if we're going to take a material object and say, look, I'm pointing at that dog that's running around, what's its essence? Well, that dog is that bundle of atoms running around. And if you take that away, it's not that dog anymore, is it? You're talking about something else. So you're not going to be able to extract materiality from essence, because if essence is what a thing is, which is all it sounds like to me, it sounds like a fancy way of saying what a thing is, and you're specifically talking about that thing, then it's a done deal. Material is essence.
Well, can we actually do that thought experiment where, right, let's say we're in the same room physically, and we see and we point, we say that dog, because now we've used the word that, right, which is very, it's like a particular instantiation of a universal. But when I say that,
Well,
blah blah,
wait. I don't think it's a particular instantiation of universal. Like, that's a whole other system of like universals and participation.
Well, okay. Okay, fair to push back, but I guess what I'm please try like the point I'm trying to say is the fact I even understand, like when you point to it and say that dog and you use the word dog, I'm not shocked and mortified saying what, like that's a chair. Why did he just call that a dog? Like, no, because we both already have our intellect grasps dogness, like what a dog is, and now we're pointing to a particular
term that. We just have a vague term, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that can fit under that term. Paintings can fit under that term. Memes can fit under that term. Books about dogs can fit under that term. It is vague. It's just like broad.
No, there's a limit, but there's a limit. It's not infinitely vague, because I'm not talking about a chair. I'm not talking about an apple. I'm talking about a dog.
There's nothing special going on here. I'm just saying you're casting a net more broadly or more narrowly. I don't mind that you cast nets over meaning and present things in a very specific sense of that dog, in which case, yes, that dog's essence is its materiality, or more broadly to include all sorts of different ideas about dogs. But that's just casting a net. I don't have an issue with it, but it's not proving anything that you would seek to prove.
Well, the whole, I guess, what I'm really trying to do is that are any act of reasoning intelligibility presupposes certain metaphysical principles. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to engage intelligibly at all in the first place. So the fact that we are able to means there's certain grounding principles, and that's what I'm trying to elucidate. Is like, what are the grounding principles that make our interactions even coherent in the first place?
I'm denying that there's essence and existence distinction, and that materiality could not be part of a thing's essence if essence is essentially just what it is. And I don't have a problem, though, with us talking intelligibly. Like, I agree, we're having an intelligible conversation, because yes, there's all this meaning. There's what is all meaningful. It all is what it is. and you can cast a net more broadly or narrowly. But
So do you
I don't
believe?
think you've actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but then do you believe in like forms? I mean, do you deny the existence of forms?
Yeah, I'm kind of ambivalent. I mean, if it's going to get into a system of participation, then yes, I do. But if you just mean a broad net, like, can I describe things with four legs? And do we have this vague, fuzzy idea of a four-leg entity? No, I'm fine with that. But I don't think that four-legged entities derive their existence from our like word of four-legged entities or some form up in the sky that then imbues them with their existence. No, I don't agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't think they're a shadow of our definition of
I,
four-legged entities.
I have. Well, just to be clear, I mean, I haven't introduced any of those points. I haven't even mentioned anything about that, right? As far as
You're saying like, do I believe in forms? And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm not saying that you presented a certain argument for that. I just it could go in all sorts of ways.
No, fair enough, right? But yeah, I guess that there's an abstraction that is coherent and containerized, right? So if I say dog, that exists in the intellect, and then if I in the real world I start seeing other dogs, right? I recognize I recognize that dog is a particular. It's a kind of dog. It's not a tree. So my mind apprehends that a dog exists. There's a form that's different than a tree. Again, and there's different ambiguity, sure, but like we agree that there are boundaries where a tree is not a dog. Like it's not.
How about this? It's a dog existing in a larger reality. Does that satisfy it? Because then it's like the dog is what it is. You're like, well, there are other types of dogs. It's like, yes, reality is bigger than the dog. And if you want to signify the dog and other dogs, you can do that. All the other dogs are what they are too. And there's your universal. It's all the other dogs. So I agree that dogs exist in a bigger reality. But that's all I think you're achieving in this talk of universal.
Well, what I'm saying is there's an archetype of dog that is a thing. Like that archetype is a thing, and that thing has an essence. And then the specific dog running around in front of me, that's that's that archetype kind of instantiating. But it's not to say it's a different thing entirely. Like, oh, that dog is completely different than your archetype of dog. Like, no, like that dog is a particular instance of the universal dog archetype. It's not a completely separate thing. Like an apple would be completely separate from dog, or a chair would be separate from dog.
Yeah, so I'm just denying that. I don't think it gets its existence from an archetype. I think that the archetype itself is, depending on how we want to draw these lines, going to be the dog. Because if we said like dogness, well, what is dogness? It could be defined as all the dogs. And so, yes, then the universal would be the actual dog. It would just be a broad catch-all.
But that presupposes we even know what we mean. But even if we say all the dogs, we presuppose we even know what we're saying with dog. Like, how can I even recognize that there's two of anything? How can even I recognize that there's two of anything, right? If
self-evident, it appears to me. Like, how do I know there are two dogs in front of me? Well, I would have direct perception of two entities, right?
Right, but you recognize an identity between them that, oh, this is the sameness. Like, this has a dog nature. Like, these two entities both have the nature of dog, and so therefore I will call them dog.
But why would they have the same nature? And the way they would have the same nature is they would each be what they are. And the dog would be as it is, and the other dog would be as it is, and we would see similarities. And so if you wanted to say the similarity, well, the similarity is because you have two dogs and you can cast a net over them.
They have the same, yeah, they have the same essence.
Non-dog that were then participating in a magical dog form that gave them their similarity. They would be similar by virtue of what they are, namely a dog and a dog.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too strict on participation language. I understand you kind of critiquing that. I'm just saying, to make anything intelligible, like those two things, I recognize they're both dogs, genus, species, right? They are both participating in the category of dog, which has specific essence. That category.
They're not participating. I'm saying
not participating. They're members. They're members of the set, right? They're grouping. Like, they're not completely unrelated instances. Like
nothing is unrelated. Everything exists. Everything is here together.
No, but some things are more proximally related than others. Like a pillow, if I have in one exhibit A is two dogs and exhibit B is a dog and a pillow, we would say that exhibit A, those two beings are more proximate. They share the same nature. Whereas exhibit B, there's two natures. There's a dog thing and a pillow thing. Like those are different natures. I mean, you don't dispute that.
And all that meaning is coming from the things themselves. It's like, what is dogness? To have four legs. Okay, that entity has four legs. That entity has four legs. We see this commonality, but where is the four legs coming from? It is coming from each thing itself. It is what it is. The dog is the four-legged thing. The dog is the four-legged thing. And they're proximate in this reality together, but they didn't get their four-leggedness from something else. And our ability to say, well, each one has four legs, doesn't come from, like, it doesn't have to be mediated by something that makes us aware of four-leggedness. I mean, it's direct. It's like I'm directly experiencing I guess, however we want to model vision, but I'm directly experiencing the dog. And that's all I needed to get that similarity.
How do you know that you're seeing two things of the same nature, two dogs, as opposed to just two completely different things? This is a dog and a gobbledygook. Like, how do you know that they're both part of the same category?
Well, I'm just saying the experience is similar. I mean, what meaning am I getting from a dog? I'm getting a certain meaning from it that has four legs. And when I encounter that meaning again, I'm like, oh, I'm having the same sort of experience. And I'm grouping them together. And ultimately, all of these experiences amount to what is, or the experience, or all the meaning I'm aware of. And so I'm just organizing all of the meaning I'm aware of.
So you organize the meaning that's hitting your experience when you see the two dogs. So when you call them dog, do you consider that a subjective assignment that just makes sense to your own mind? Or do you think that those things ontologically are dogs, like they just carry some property of dogness, like a nature of dog? Or you say no, you're just referring to the impression it does on your senses, and you're subjectively assigning the label of dog just to make your own sense of what's going on?
Well, I think they are what they are. And so what would I know of them? I would be approaching in two ways, right? I would have my direct sensation, which I can't deny, and then I would have my attempt to model what to make of all these direct senses, or whatever direct contact I have, or whatever my experience is. And so when you say, like, am I just subjectively calling them dogs? Well, in a sense I am. In one sense, I'm saying they are what they are, and that's not based on me or anything. Each thing is what it is. And so that's just a fact, regardless of what I happen to be modeling there. But also it is subjective in the sense of, well, I see something, I've got these sensations, and now what am I to make of it? And so I'm trying to model it. And is it a dog or is it a cat? I mean, I have models. I can try to render them coherent and workable, but maybe I make mistakes. And in that sense, it's subjective. But yeah, no, the thing is what it is. It's not what it is not.
Yeah, I'm trying to it's an interesting, I don't know, have you ever heard of thought terminating cliches?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's interesting Wikipedia page on it. It's like a certain kind of loaded language that, you say it and then it kind of like shuts off. It's like if someone says, stop thinking too much. It is what it is. Oh, it's not that deep, or whatever, right? Like, or let's agree to disagree. It's like it's like a decision to put a stoppage point on the explanatory layer, but it's like, well, what makes that justified? So I guess I'm not saying you're doing that.
Wait. This is like
no, you're not. I'm not saying you're doing that. Let me just finish my point.
For meaning.
No, sorry.
It's a requirement for meaning.
Yeah, yes, I know, but what I'm saying is functionally in our conversation right now, when you say the sentence, it is what it is, it's like, well, what is that sentence? It collapses. It reduces everything to just, it is what it is. Well, then it's like, yeah, but we're making distinctions. And anytime I'm trying to make a distinction, you're saying, well, everything is what it is. It's just like repeating some brute fact of existence, but while all collapsing the distinction.
Reality is a brute fact. It is necessary. Everything is what it is. Therefore, the whole thing is complete and necessary and unchanging. That's the whole point. That's why Thomism or Aristotelianism fails. Like that's That's why I'm rejecting everything you would have to say about essence and existence ultimately.
When you say, when you
and
use
also
the
why I would reject God, Christianity. It's like this is a reason for a total overthrow and rejection of Christianity.
when you say that's why, right? Why? Well, why implies some sort of, I know you don't like the word, but cause and effect relations through logic. You know that there's a why, there's an explanatory layer, there's something behind the thing, and you're going from premise to conclusion. Let's say a brute fact doesn't have any of that built into it. Like it just happens. I mean, your whole belief system, if it's just a brute fact, let's say, it could have just popped into your head out of nowhere 5 seconds ago, and even though it feels like you have memory and it feels like you've thought about these things, if it's just a brute fact, I mean, it could have just been a thing popping in existence, right? What gives your own?
Well, hold on. For your objection to mean anything to me, it would have to, of course, be meaningful. And so if you want to say, oh, existence could pop out of nothing, well, then you've got to define what a nothing is. And you'd also have to explain how a thing could be what it is not, because presumably there's an existence that is not and now comes to be, which I think is just meaningless. Now, to your earlier point, though, about cause and effect or how I'm reaching one point from another, I don't think this is an issue of cause and effect. This is necessary inferences. So what I'm saying is reality, which we spoke earlier of, is just whatever there is to speak of, any sort of meaning or presence. That is necessary. That there is, because it just self-evident hits you. There is. You are what you are, and you have all this stuff around you. It is what it is. That's the absolute 100% certainty necessity that I'm positing and acknowledging, and that I think everyone has to acknowledge to do philosophy. And that if you don't acknowledge and you try to step outside those lines, then the speech just breaks down into meaninglessness. And what are the necessary inferences of that context of reality? Well, one would be, for example, reality is solitary, because of course there's nothing else. There's just is what is. We didn't posit anything else, and whatever else we could posit would be fitting under the definition of existing or being there to speak of. So we have it as solitary. We can say it's unchanging. Again, another necessary inference, because if change is being defined as becoming something else, well, obviously what is can't become anything else because there's nothing else for it to become. We could say that it's continuous, or it's, it can't be broken apart. It's indivisible because there's no way to have a not being to divvy it up and separate independent parts from one another. It all is one perfectly complete entity. And again, it's perfectly complete because what would we say it lacks? We couldn't say it lacks anything, because if we posited anything, it would be included. So you have this beautiful vision of reality that goes beyond any limited church or else or other group, and is really the whole perfect completeness of meaning, and everything that is possible is necessary, and everything has inviolate existence and is unshakable and cannot be destroyed and is not generated. It's all there. And so you have this beautiful completeness and absolute security and absolute certainty of knowledge. And that is my position. And so when I say I totally reject Christianity, it's like they don't have that. They don't have that vision.
Okay, so it's really interesting to me, because everything that you said, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but that is the classical definition of God. So everything that you describe reality and the is, right? That's Thomas Aquinas' whole argument is literally, I mean, the exact same thing you said, being, isness, right? That is God. God is that act of existence, of being, of reality.
Well, I am that. So Thomas Aquinas is not going to call me God, right?
He says you participate in a finite reception of it because you recognize
Am I God?
You participate.
God? Am I divine? 100% divine?
No, you participate in a limited reception of the completion. You personally are not full, like you described all those things, unchanging, no parts. That's God. Like by definition, that's the definition of God.
Well, then Aquinas is not saying what I'm saying, because I'm saying that everything that is also has to comply with the nature of what is, because if it didn't comply with the nature of what is, then it would be other than what is, and all we have is what is. And so, yes,
to me, that's equivocation.
If Aquinas was saying what I am saying, I would be 100% divine. But of course, I'm not. And Aquinas
I
would
see.
also be positing things like God and creation, and that creation comes from nothing. So Aquinas is definitely not saying what I'm saying. Like, he's not saying that I'm 100% divine. He's not saying that God is the all-encompassing whole, because then I would be 100% divine. I'd be 100% of God. He's saying that there's creation from nothing, where what is not now is. So again, he's positing something beyond what is. I mean, there are many, 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 many issues.
Well, that part I'd say is just a straw man. But I think what it comes down to here, because you keep saying what is, like, yes, you can, it just feels like you're collapsing the modes of any existent thing into just a what is. Well, so therefore, so on the one hand, if I take that to an extreme, right, everything just is what it is. There's no distinction. There's literally no differences. It's all just one unity, one homogenous thing. But basic experience in our conversation is that.
But wait, that doesn't follow. You said that if everything is what it is, it's all one homogeneous unity.
I'm saying,
presumably by homogeneous, you mean that each individual thing would be indistinguishable. But if each thing is what it is, then everything is distinguishable in the sense that each would be what it is. Now, it would be of what is, namely reality writ large.
But that's participation language. But that's participation language of what is. Like, that's
no, it's not. Does my arm participate in me? No. I am this. Let's just make me a material body. The arm doesn't participate in me. The arm is the arm, and I am like this net cast over the whole body in this example. So,
well, when the arm moves,
I mean,
when the arm moves, is it not participating in your will to move it?
Well, I'm just trying to give an example that would be analogous to what is and everything being of what is. The arm is 100% of me. There's nothing about the arm that is not of me. So it's not like this separate thing that's participating in me.
But that's the same language that we would use with God. There's nothing about you that's not of God in a limited, received way.
So I'm 100% divine. I'm 100% divine.
No, there's.
Well, what about me is not divine?
You are, if God is equivalent to being, and let's just go with what I'm proposing.
No. You said I am. Just like the arm is 100% of me, there's nothing about the arm that is not of me. You then said, well, that's equivalent to this talk of God. Well, then I would be 100% of God. And if God is divine, then I'm 100% divine. So
can you let me express something? I know you could express it in your terms, but I'm trying to express the core point of the talk, and I haven't even got open up to what is divine. That's a different thing. But let's just say forget all the baggage. Right? Forget the Christianity. Forget all this stuff. We're just don't let's not import that baggage yet. I'm not introducing any of that. I'm not introducing it. I haven't used the word divine. I've not introduced that at all in this discussion. So let's just start. Let's just take all the assumptions off the table. If we say, and forget the word God, God is loaded. I mean, people hear the word God, maybe it evokes, anger because of whatever, right? I mean, whatever. It's like, let's just forget that word God. I'm just saying.
No. Let's talk about essence and existence, or whatever you wanted to introduce.
So in this case, what I'm trying to bridge here, because you are saying where there's overlap, is being, which you say reality or what is. Yes, is being. So capital B, being, or the act of to be, being. And so again, I'm not going to use the G word, but everything participates in being, or it is, it has, but because I exist, the dog exists, you exist, and this existence, is not, I don't possess that existence from my own. Well, I guess because it gets into cause and effect, but I could have not existed, right? It's there's nothing that makes me necessary in all possible worlds, right? So it's.
I disagree.
Oh, so my existence is necessary. It's not interesting.
Yeah, I mean, think about back to the point where we agreed that there's reality, and reality is going to be this sort of all-subsuming whole of what we can speak about or what's meaningful. And so if it is all that is there, it's complete, right?
What we can speak about, I'm sorry, so maybe that's to push back, because I think reality transcends what we can purely put into language and words. So I have to push back on that. I think we reach to something a little greater than us that we perceive as completion, but since we ourselves are not complete, we can't fully speak of reality in a complete sense.
Well, I don't think you can speak of anything in a complete sense, in the sense that an image is an image and words are words. So how could words ever be a painting? or an image. It
Sure.
couldn't, right?
Sure.
You'd have to have it. Each thing would have to be in its own right, experienced directly to really get the thing itself. I mean, actually, only the thing itself could be the thing itself. So words will never be a substitute for the thing itself. But I guess what I'm saying when I say speak of, I'm really saying what we can relate to, what we can reference, what sort of meaning there is to communicate. And so in that sense, I don't think you would be saying that you could reference what is not referenceable, or you could present what is not meaningful. Like, you wouldn't do that. I think you'd stop at that.
So maybe where our perceptions would disagree in this thought experiment here is that, let's say, here's this item in front of me, the chair, whatever it is, and one perspective is to say, well, it's just sitting still. It's there. It's motionless. It's not doing anything. That object is not doing anything. It's just there. Whereas I would say, no, it's performing the action of to be. It is being right now. It is existing. It exists. Like, that is an action. That is an act. That item. So, but it sounds like you're saying no, like that. Would you reject that notion or language for me to say that that object is in the process of acting to be right now?
Yeah, I mean, the object is what it is, and if what it is material.
So what does the word is mean? Not to be pedantic, but doesn't is mean the same thing as to be, like to perform the act of to be? It's a verb, right?
Oh, you're the one using a verb here. I'm not. I'm just saying that to be is to be something, to be meaningful, to have any sort of presence, like to be present, any sort of presence, anything that just literally anything at all, anything meaningful or communicable or present in any way. And so when you say act, I mean, I don't.
Well, it's a verb, right? I guess if we say X is Y or it is what it is, X is Y. Don't we agree that the word is an action word, right? It is. I mean, isn't the word is an act?
Actions are. What? No, I don't agree. I don't know what you mean by act here.
Well, it's the difference between noun and verb. I mean, isn't that at some point, we reach the limits of language, but don't we know the difference?
Well, I don't think I don't think you're performing an action to be yourself. I mean, you are yourself.
But the word are is not a noun. It's not an object. It's a verb. It's a relation.
It's just indicating that you are, that you exist, that you have presence.
Right. It's a word of motion, right? It's not a noun,
no,
right?
It's not a word of motion.
Okay, well, if we can't agree on what a verb is.
It's a table, and you're saying, well, you're assigning a verb to the table. No, I'm not.
I'm sorry, repeat that again. I didn't hear your example. Sorry, what did you say?
It's like if I said there is a chair, and you said, you've assigned a verb to the chair. No, I didn't. I indicated there's meaning. Its meaning is present.
And there is a chair's equivalent.
Chair, and if we don't understand chair, then we can discuss it with each other. But yeah.
Well, okay, so let's deconstruct that. There is a chair is equivalent to a chair is there. So the chair is the object. The is the act of to be, and in this case, I'm adding the qualifier of location there. So I'm saying the chair, exists there, right? But the exist again. That's an action. It's an exercise.
But then everything. I always want to say this is a pointless exercise because
it's not, because you say it's a potency and act distinction.
There's an idea in my head. So now the idea is doing something.
The idea is it's active in your mind and in your intellect. Yes, it is.
So it exists. So ideas exist now.
As it's there, yeah. But what happened the second before the idea was there, right? If I said, think of a blue elephant, now the idea, poof, it's there in your head. But before I said that, where was it? Did it go from non-existence to existence?
No, of course not. How would it come from existence to non-existence or non-existence to existence? That doesn't make any sense. But there's only one way to be, to exist.
Well, right, but presumably, that wasn't there until I said big blue. How about this unique idea you've never heard? If I say big blue elephant with 5 eyes and a red hair, okay, and bam, you just see that, like, okay, there's the idea. But before I said it, did it exist?
Of course it did. This is just another vagueness of language because we have to now distinguish how things are hanging in relationship to each other. It's like does tomorrow exist? Yes, tomorrow, because we're referencing something, and
Right.
it is what it is.
But I guess what I'm saying, so not to, sorry, I don't mean to get lost in equivocation, but what I mean is because you said, well, there's no action happening with the idea. I'm trying to say, well, yeah, it just poofed in your head. That is the action. Like it just appeared before your consciousness. So there is an act.
But I'm
like,
denying that.
what?
I'm denying that. I'm saying it didn't come from nothing and then become. I'm saying that reality is complete, and so is the time or the chronology.
Well, I agree. I agree. It doesn't come from nothing, because that would be an error. But again, that's not the Thomistic position, right? But what I'm saying is, when I just said this elephant, when I say when I say, like, if we just, let's say we click record right now, and whatever's in your mind right now, I don't know, you're having some thoughts. There's different things. Then if I say big red-haired elephant, spiky whatever, all of a sudden in your mind, like, something just happened, right? So something just happened, and so then the question is, and like you said, it always existed. It can't have non-existed. So in the before, when I clicked record, before I said the words red spiky elephant, that thing still existed, but as a potency. And then once it popped in your head, it became actual. Otherwise, where was it?
So here's the quick question. Here's two ways of quickly resolving this. One, because reality is complete, today is complete. And so all we're saying is that, right, like the morning, for example, I'm eating breakfast in the morning of today. Lunchtime looks different. And you can describe the morning, and you can describe events that take place in the morning and how they relate to stuff in the afternoon. But the morning and the afternoon both exist, and they both are what they are, and one is not a non-being coming into being. Now, the other point, which is also why I was trying to interrupt earlier, is I do actually think the Thomist is saying that non-being comes to be, because listen to the distinction you made there between potency and actual. You said, well, the elephant or whatever it was that you were going to have pop into my head doesn't exist, but it exists as potency. The question immediately becomes, is the potential elephant the actual elephant? So answer that for me, I suppose. Is the potential elephant the actual elephant?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that's like a modal equivocation, because I would say it's the same elephant under a different mode. So it's just changing mode. It's not two different elephants.
But they're distinct, right? I mean, if I were to say, look, a potential elephant, look, an actual elephant, am I pointing out two different things?
Well, as soon as you point, right, and laser your attention to one, let's say point in space time or point in mental ether, right? Now you're calling out and picking things like different.
Well, you did that. You said that there was a potential elephant that then became an actual elephant. Like, you were the one who posited a potential elephant.
Well, this goes back to, I think, I do want to answer the question. Let me just try to wrestle with this, because this goes back to, I think, where we disagreed on the potency of something. Like water can freeze. It has a potency of ice, but right now it's not ice, it's water. It's actually water. And that same thing, if I make some changes in the environment, the potency of ice now becomes actual. But it's not that I'm saying, like,
Do you see the vagueness? Do you see the vagueness? The only reason you can talk of the water freezing is because you now broadened the scope of what you were saying. If it was the morning, and I guess the water is frozen because it's usually cooler in the mornings or late at night. So the water's frozen in the morning. And so you said the frozen water can melt. And I would immediately object because, of course, as we said earlier, how could frozen water melt? Frozen water is by definition frozen water. And to say that it melts would be to say that frozen water is melted water. No, the frozen water is the frozen water. Well, this goes back to, now when you add the vagary and you just say water, you say, well, the water melts. Okay, well, now you're just being vague, because really the only way I can make that claim meaningful is to either detach it from the frozen water or say, okay, we're positing the morning where it's frozen, we're positing the afternoon where it's melted, and water refers to both those times. And therefore, we can say the water can melt, because water is not frozen water or melted water. Water now refers to both times, and we're describing its content, basically.
Sure. Well,
Which
okay,
so
okay.
because of the vagueness there, that's why it makes sense. But at no point is the frozen
Sure.
water the melted water or the melted water the frozen
Right. I
water.
know. Well,
It was
I
positive
got the
both that
point.
allowed us to do that.
No, I got the point, but this goes back to, I suppose, earlier when we were talking about the essential features, substance and accidents. So, where again, to me, the frozen or the melted is not part of the nature of water itself. That's a different attribute. So, I guess what I'd say, let's say if I don't, because right, I don't want to commit to saying frozen water. So,
But we
because
have to
let me
commit to
can I?
something.
I just want to make the point. If because to your right under your system of what epistemology or worldview, it's if I say the word frozen water, like any words that I say are by definition essential attributes of the thing. They're not like secondary descriptors, but everything is primary. So when I say frozen water, ontologically, all of those things are the same. Where again, for me, the ontology is water, and then frozen is a state of the water. But okay, let's just because we will disagree. So let's just say, okay, we're staring at this bucket, and let's say it's ice, right? There's ice in the bucket. It's frozen water, right? It's ice, and we're just sitting there. We're pointing at it. So I don't want to use language. I'm gonna say that, like, look at this thing, and we're both saying, yeah, look at this thing, and we're both pointing at that thing, and then all of a sudden, that thing is changing, right? We witness change, and before it's like it's changing, and all of a sudden, we see the warm water, right, or whatever. We see water, and it's not like a new thing popped into existence per se, but there was a change because we're pointing in the same time space. I mean, we're literally pointing at the same reference, but the only way to make sense of the change to not violate the law of non-contradiction, because first we had a bucket of ice, now we have a bucket of water. How do we avoid non-contradiction? It's through that vehicle, that metaphysical bridge of potency becoming act.
No, no, that is actually the contradiction because it is to say that the bucket of water in the morning is the bucket of water in the afternoon. The whole model of change has to be tossed out, like that whole model, because again, it's just vagaries or like hiding from specific details in order to give this illusion of saying something meaningful. If we are saying there's a bucket of water in the morning and then there's a bucket of water in the afternoon, we can tell that story and we can relate them and say, look, they have a same geographical location. They're located a certain amount of time from one another. That all makes sense, but it will never make sense to say that the bucket of water in the morning is the bucket of water in the afternoon if we mean it like in such a literal way. We have to actually accept that these are two different things standing in a certain relationship to one another. It's like if I asked you, are you a 5-year-old? And you say, no, I'm not a 5-year-old. And then I say, well, are you your 5-year-old self then? And then it's like, well, of course, what you want to say is, or I shouldn't say you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a person will probably want to say they have a certain story that connects them to a 5-year-old. They have certain geographical location that connects them to a 5-year-old. They have, they can tell all
Sure.
these details about them and that 5-year-old, but they're not the 5-year-old anymore that the bucket of water in the morning is the bucket in the afternoon. This is a very important
Sure.
distinction
Well, let
because
me. Okay.
when we miss it, when we get into this, we miss it and we talk about potency and actuality as something metaphysically significant rather than just relative. Then, in my opinion, the train has left the tracks. It's just a total disaster.
Okay. Well, let me. Yeah, I'll have to hop off here. So maybe this will be one of our last points here. But yeah, well, that's interesting. So I think I've been definitely chewing a lot on the Sorites paradox and how it's kind of like an essential feature on all of life and the perception here. And I'll connect that dot in a second. But I guess, right, to go with your snapshotting, let's say, right, because there's a snapshot in the morning. I'm pointing at a thing. In this case, it's like a bucket of frozen water, and then there's an afternoon snapshot in that same bucket, but it's not. Maybe it's not. Well, it's the same bucket, but maybe not the same contents. Now it's different, right? The thing inside changed, and of course, rhetorically, right? I mean, the thing inside was ice, and then there's the thing later was just liquid water, so frozen water, liquid water. So in that sense, say, wow, well, that's a different thing. Like, okay, so then we move the snapshots more closely. So rather than morning to afternoon, morning and like a couple minutes later, it's like completely frozen ice versus ice with some condensation, like some of the water's changing, and then we gradate, and then we collapse that even more to like 1 millisecond. So like the thing, when it starts in its fully frozen state to like 1% melted or less, 0.01% melted. If I'm not misinterpreting you, I think. In your system, I would necessarily have to say those are, even within the first millisecond difference, now we're looking at different things. We're no longer looking at the same thing. These are different things. So in some sense, like a thing itself isn't really persisting because you even denied cause and effect. So that first thing that started is the fully frozen ice cube is now we're looking at almost like a completely, it's a different thing now. It started melting. It's now a 99% ice cube, not 100% ice cube because it started to melt. And so it just seems to me that to embrace your system would be to say that, yeah, a thing doesn't really persist, but every millisecond of existence, it's just the thing is kind of rethinging itself. But the problem is my consciousness doesn't operate in an infinitely small time. To process a thought, it might take 40 milliseconds or something. So even that, since even my notion of thing requires a 40 millisecond interval to conceptualize, let's say, in reality, there was like 40 milliseconds of thing changing to different things. So even when I think I'm talking about a single thing, really that thing had an infinite number of different things. And before I can get the thought out, the thing has changed before my eyes, and it's a very different thing. And so how can I even transfer the concept? I mean, did I make sense? I know it's a little abstract, but I mean, is that fair? Because like the 100% ice cube is a different thing than the 99% ice cube, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to, if we're going to make precise points and discuss metaphysics, it's important to keep in all the meaning and be precise. And yes, if moments are different, then they're different, and that difference has to be acknowledged, or else we're just kind of papering over a distinction, and we're going to wind up with a whole bunch of errors. You said you had to go, so I respect that. You mentioned a paradox. I would suggest a paradox for you. One paradox is, and this doesn't come from Eubulides, who did the Sorites, but this comes from a similar thinker a little bit later than him. And there's a few of this style, but how about this? It's like, when does a ball hit a roof? Does it hit the roof when it's in the air, or does it hit the roof when it's touching the roof? Because if it's in the air, it hasn't hit the roof yet. And if it's touching the roof, well, it's already hit the roof. And so the only way to really make sense, in my opinion, and in that I believe what the thinker was getting at, is that we take the Eleatic approach, which is we posit the whole story. We posit the ball being thrown into the air and landing on the roof. Like, that story is a complete whole. And then we can describe the becoming or the touching of the ball on the roof, like that moment of touchingness or transition. You take the time before, when it's in the air, and you take the time when there's a ball that's touching the roof, and you can tell a story given the difference. And that difference gives us the only, in my opinion, coherent way to discuss change. It's to say the story is complete just like reality is complete. And when we talk about change, we acknowledge the ball in the air. We acknowledge the ball on the roof. We see their proximity, and we know that all things are connected because all things exist. And now we are telling this completed story, and that's why it's meaningful, rather than the one thing trying to be what it is not. It just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I have to think about that paradox because, could we ever tell the complete story in its full totality such that we could then say that? That's my question I'll have to look into. And then, yeah, thank you. I forgot that the Sorites, my point about the Sorites, as you know, and for those listening, it's paradox of the heap. How many grains of sand can I put in a pile until I call it a heap, or how many rocks until it's a pile, or how many dollars until you're rich? And of course, to the people listening, it's like, we know that at some point you become poor if you go from poor to rich, but we don't know exactly where the threshold is. So in this case, and I didn't get a chance to develop it with you together here, but I think we intuitively get the point, is that there's some threshold of when a thing is a thing and not something else, or there's a dog, right? Or when something is a dog as opposed to like a dog's like where we say this is similar enough to be grouped into one category, and that's that's the paradox. Well, when is something similar enough? When is something different enough to be recognized as separate versus the same? And that's a paradox. But anyway, Adam, yeah, no, I appreciate. I hope this was interesting, stimulating for you. I found it interesting and enjoyed chatting with you, and certainly hope the listeners found it interesting as well. Please leave a comment. Let us know how it was. But yeah, Adam, anything else you want to say before we jump off?
No, I'll let you go, and I got to get going as well. But it was a pleasure, and it's always good to have these philosophical discussions. Thank you.
For sure. Thanks. God bless you. God bless everyone, and have a great rest of your week.